Hi and welcome to G Square eLearn. In this video, we are going to learn about multithreading in Java. How do we achieve that? We all know that multithreading is required whenever there are cases where we need to run the processes or tasks parallelly, independent of each other. That means asynchronous processes. So multithreading is the process of executing multiple sub-processes or subtasks at a time which are independent of each other. So if any of the exception occurs in one process, other processes are not blocked. Most of the times we have seen that multithreading is achieved using Runnable interface in Java. But now today we'll see what is the Callable interface. Callable interface is introduced after Java 1.5. The main or major difference between the Callable and Runnable interface is Callable interface allows you to return something, whereas Runnable interface does not allow you to return. Also, in Runnable interface, you cannot throw checked exceptions. That means if individual process is throwing any exception, in Runnable, you cannot throw that exception, whereas in Callable interface, it is possible. We will take a simple example wherein will we have three tasks or three threads running parallelly, and we will see how do they run by having some comments or some printouts. So this is my main class. I have given the name as multithreading example. Now how do you call the callable interfaces? From the thread pool of executors, we need to define how many number of executors should run parallelly at a time. So for example, we'll initialize thread pool executor. So you can see that java.util.concurrent is what is introduced after Java 1.5, wherein all these services are mentioned. So thread pool executor is a service that helps you to execute the tasks that are defined. So we will define this pool. So herein we will define fixed number of threads. So for example, if I set the fixed number to 5, whenever I invoke all the processes, only 5 threads will run at a time. And then the processes will be like, the rest of the processes will be in queue, and one of the thread is free, the next process will be taken up by that thread. But the number of tasks or the executors which are running parallel are fixed to 5. So we need to typecast this. Now herein I have defined one runMe class which implements the callable interface. Now here you can see that we have mentioned the data type of what is being returned by this thread. So for example, now to know how it runs, what I have done is we will just loop this says thread 1 sentence for 10 times and then return that and return from thread 1. Similarly, this is thread 2 and thread 3. Now in the thread 3, if the I equals 2, I have also thrown an exception so that we can see if exception occurs in one of the thread, how it affects the other two. So to run this, only defining the thread will not run it even if you run the main class. So you need to invoke them all using executor. So we'll invoke all the threads at a time. So before that, we'll define a collection. We'll take a collection as array list of callable interface. So I will add all my interface classes to this list. Similarly, we'll add second and third thread. Now I'll invoke all the threads at a time so that they will run in parallel. Now we have to surround this with a try catch, since Callable Interface allows you to throw an exception. So if one of the thread is throwing an exception, it will be captured here. Now the return of this after we execute you can see the return type for this invoke method is list of future. So future is another interface in a concurrent package. So this represents the result of your thread. So there are methods provided to wait till the thread process is completed. Then another method to cancel the thread if at all any error occurs. So all those methods are defined in this future interface. So the return type of this invoke call is a list of futures. So we'll click that here. Again, the return data type of this should be string, as we have defined it in the callable. You can say futures. So these are our result. Okay, so we'll try to run this and see how it works. Okay, so herein you can see that the execution is random. So first the thread 2 is taken up by the first executor, so we have printed this is thread 2. Then the third is taken up, and then the first thread is returned 10 times. Now we can see that in thread 3 actually it should be printed 6 times, but in second, when if I have a condition where I'm checking if i's value is 2, throw an exception. So it will run for a loop 0, 1 and 2 and then throw an exception, and it comes out of the thread, whereas this has no effect on the other threads. So we can see that this is thread 3 is printed thrice. Okay, now what happened to what I have returned from each thread? Now this is collected using future interface. So these futures will have a list of all the returned strings from all the threads. Now how to print that? You can use a simple for loop to print the future text. For each future, there is a method we can see get, which will get you the returned string from each thread. Then we can check if the process or thread is cancelled, if it is completed properly, and all those boolean are available. So based on that we can have different conditions, that what to do if the thread is not completed proper, what to do if it is cancelled, and so on. Also we have a method called wait. So we can wait for a process to complete and then get the return value from the thread. So for now we'll print this. So and now let's run it again. Oops. It's an exception. Okay, great. So you can see that the return value from the thread 1 is printed, then the return value from thread 2 is printed, but in thread 3 there is an exception thrown. So instead of printing the return value, it has printed the exception. Okay, so this is how we have multi-threading in Java. This is a very basic example to understand how it works. Based on this, you can write your logic that which thread should run what process. All the threads will run in parallel, and you can also return the value from it. And now you can use a callable interface instead of runnable. Hope this concept is clear to you all and you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you.